Okay, this week in Principles of Programming Graphical User Interfaces, we have been talking about internationalization. And in this Android track, I will give you some information on how to do that in Android Studio and also a few components and other relevant issues. So the demo application, if I first show it, is rather simple. Here it is in a rather small screen. We have just one text field accepting numbers, and if I enter the 3 and click add, we get a new timer firing in 3 seconds. And when the timer fires, it shows this snack bar, and also we get a notification, which if the user clicks on the notification, they come back to this application. So simple application, but a couple of things there. Well, we have the timers, and then we are using the snack bar and notifications, and also this list of the timers here. It's implemented using RecyclerView, which enables you to do this kind of lists with the user, which the user can scroll, and the RecyclerView can handle very large, very long lists with lots of data behind them. So if we go and look at this application, I would like to start with this TimerModel. And as you can see, it's a ViewModel. So we have been talking about ViewModel a couple of times, and it is something you usually want for your application to store the data of that the single activity uses mainly, or one of the reasons is because it survives these configuration changes. So when the user rotates the display, for example. And I'm using the live data, mutable live data being the concrete class used to store the data, and these live data contain list of timers and list of dates. Timer comes from, as you can see here, Java util package, so it's generic Java timer. And date comes from also from the util package, so it's also a generic Java class. And these lists are these Java util lists, concretely linked lists. So I extend here ViewModel, and I have a handful of methods, a constructor, which creates those lists, size, which tells how many items there are, and this is built to work so that the amount of items in the timers and dates lists, there is equal amount of them, so the same index refers to the same element. So the timer is the actual timer, which makes something happen later, and date specifies the moment and time when that thing will happen. We have one get method to get access to the live data, and this provides the dates object. There is no access to the timer objects. They are just stored here internally. We have addTimer, so here timer and date are given, so these are added there, and then I call the set value of each of the live data, because this makes the whatever component is listening to or observing those live data to receive notifications. And in this application, the RecyclerView gets notified when this happens. I have remove method with 2 ways. You can give a timer or you can give an index. And again, I'm removing from both to make sure that they are synchronized, and setting the value to make sure that those observers get notified. I also got this method providing an integer type ID, which you will see why I do it later. And then it's possible to get the date with index and also with timer. And then there is cancel method, which cancels a timer. And this calls cancel method of a timer and removes it and removes the date. Yeah, I don't think this is actually used because there also seems to be a bug in there. But then I have this cancel all, which runs through all the timers, cancels them, and then clears the lists and sets the values. I believe these two lines can be removed from here because it's called the remove method. So this is the view model, so it just grabs the data and provides access to it. Then reminder that when you are using the live data and view model, the build Gradle should refer to the Android Arch lifecycle extensions. And here I also, you can see that there are also there is also a RecyclerView related item here. I think you can get it automatically if you just drag a RecyclerView into your application. But you can, of course, manually add it here as necessary. Then I go to the next class, which is this TimerListAdapter, and this is now directly related to the RecyclerView. So as you can see, this one extends RecyclerView.Adapter, so a class defined inside the RecyclerView class. And the first thing here is something that's specific to RecyclerView, is this timer view holder, which extends RecyclerView view holder. So I'm just defining it inside here because I'm only using it inside this class, so it's kind of handy place to define it. And well, it has two variables. It has text view and then it has integer value position. And in a constructor, I'm storing those two values, and I'm calling super, where I give this text view to the super, and I store it here for later reference. And this is basically also this RecyclerView, the view holder contains this functionality where in the constructor you give it a view, so any sort of component, and then it takes care of actually displaying it together with the RecyclerView. Then, so this was the utility class, the view holder. Then in this actual adapter class, I have access to context, and then I have this timer model we looked a few seconds ago. And here is a constructor, context is given, and the view model is given here. So I just give references to those. And then for the adapter, there are three methods which need to be implemented, and they are here. First is onCreateViewHolder, and the parameters you receive are the view group, which will contain the data, and then index. So as the name says, here we should create a view holder. First, I'm creating the text view, and this is the component which I will use to display the information. This could be a more complex component which you can inflate from XML resource, for example. Then I get the date, and using the index, I ask the model which is the correct date. And then I set the text of the text view, And here is the first localization specific thing. So I'm using string format, giving this percentage sign, so here firing at %s. So here will be added a string, and this string I create using date format, get time instance format, and give as a parameter the date object. So date specifies basically a moment in time. And when I ask the date format to give me time instance, it will create an object which will format this date as a time. And this formatting will happen based on the settings, the operating system settings, the language and the country settings. So you will see that this code will format the time following the conventions of the language or culture specified in the operating system. And then I create a new timer view holder. So this is this small class defined here. And then there is onBind view holder, and this should update the content of the view holder so that it reflects the data that is given. So here we receive the view holder and we receive the new index. So I assume that the view holder I receive is a timer view holder because this is the only type of view holders I am creating. So we will receive one view holder which we created earlier. And then I get the date from the ViewModel which I received as a parameter on the constructor. And then I just set the text, doing exactly the same thing I did here. Set the text to a new value. And I can directly access this text view in the view holder because it's defined here in the view holder to be a public variable, so I can access from outside. Of course, I could add into the view holder get and set methods, for example, if I wanted to, but this, because it's all inside this one class, it's okay to do things like this. And then the last thing, this adapter must be able to tell is how many items there are, and then I just check the size of the timer. So the TimerModel had this size method here, so it just tells the size of how much data there is. And this specifies now the data for the recycler view and how it's displayed. And the recycler view, as said, is a list, visual list, which supports very large collections of information. And how it manages these very large collections is that it uses these view holders we have here. So this onCreate view holder is not called for every item in the list. It's only called for the items which are visible and maybe a couple of items above or below, basically below, so that it has few extra view holders ready. But then when the user keeps on scrolling, it's recycling those view holders which are not visible anymore and calling this onBind view holder method to bind new data into the already created view holders, which makes this whole process more efficient. And then we can go to the main activity. This is normal activity. I have the ViewModel reference here, and then I have the adapter. So these are the two classes we looked just before this. And let's go to the onCreate view first. These are the regular ones you get automatically. Go create notification channel, which we will look at in a moment. I get the ViewModel by using this method, which you should always use to get the ViewModel providers.off this, and then get and give the class TimerModel is what we want. RecyclerView is, I just find it by ID from the layout. We will have a look at the layout later. I set the layout manager of the recycler view to linear layout manager. I tell that the list has fixed size, meaning that this is how large it is visually. Then I create the adapter, TimerListAdapter, which we looked at, and this is the context parameter, and this is the ViewModel timers. I marked it final because we are using it in an anonymous class 2 lines below. And then I set the adapter of the recycler view, and that's it. And then, as the last step, I get the dates. So this get dates provided me live data. Live data has observe method, and whenever live data changes, I notify adapter. All the notify data sets changed in the adapter, and the adapter was this TimerListAdapter, and it extends RecyclerView.Adapter. So that one already has this notified datasets changed method, so that this need to be called when the data has changed, so that it can then tell that the recycler view should update itself. So there are 2 levels of notification. Basically, the TimerModel provides the live data, which can be observed, and then when that is observed, I notify the adapter, and adapter then finally tells the component that contains it that okay, it should update itself. Here I have addTimer, and this is bound to the button, the add button. So I get the duration, text view. I try to pass the numbers here. And again, here I'm doing some internationalization, although in this case it's not really necessary. But I get number format instance of that and use it to pass it into a number and then get the int value of that number. In this application, because the type of the text field is actually number type, the only case where this try catch can happen is that if the field is empty, nothing has been typed, then we cannot pass it. And then we go here, and then I display a snack bar. If I show you the application, if I now click add, we get bad duration snack bar notification. So snack bar using it's really simple. You call snack bar.make. Duration is this edit text, so that you must provide some sort of parent component with that, and then I give the text bad duration and add the text there, and then as the last parameter, you must tell how long it should stay visible, and this must be a constant in the snack bar class. It's either long, short, or indefinite, meaning that it should stay on as long as until user clicks it to close it. And then you call snack bar show, and that's it. Then, if we move forward, now we have the duration of the timer when it should fire, and here I'm creating the timer. And so this is a generic timer object. I create one. Then I create a runnable object. I call it notifier. And runnable object is an object which contains code that can be run. And here, the method here, if I open this one, I create new runnable, and it has one method run. And first, I format the text I want to display. And again, getting the time instance of the date format. I have the time as text. I do snack bar and show the snack bar with that date. It is now and the date. And then for the notifications. So notifications can be displayed with this notification, the builder, and you create a new one. You give the activity, and then you must give it a channel name. And I have that channel name as a resource in the resources. Then you set an icon. I have one icon in the resources. Then you set the title. Then you set the content text. This is the same text I used in the snack bar. And then you set the priority. Auto cancel tells whether it removed automatically when the user clicks it. And then intent, you can should provide intent for these notifications, and these tell what happens when the user clicks the notification. So I create an intent like we have been creating before, and I just tell it to come to this same activity here. And then you must create this pending intent. So this is not intent we call immediately, but we leave it pending. So that's why we are using something like this. Pending intent get activity is what must be called to create that. And then we set the content intent of this builder. And then finally, notification manager compatibility class is what we need, and we create this with this and yet another factory method. And then finally, we can tell that notification manager notify, and we get the ID. This is where we need the ID, individual ID for each notification, and then using the builder's build method. And then I remove this timer from the ViewModel. So I have the timer here as a final variable, so I can refer it to here. I just remove it from the live data, which then removes it from the the recycler view, so from the list. And now I have this timer. So this was all just code which will run when the timer will fire. So I have the timer object here, and first I add into the ViewModel this timer and the new date. And this date is the moment when the timer should fire. If this date is actually used only to display the information on screen. So I get the current time and add the seconds times 1000 to it. So these timestamps, they are milliseconds. Now we have data in the ViewModel, and it appears because the notifications and observers on screen. And then for the timer, I must call schedule method. And here I give a runnable. So if I open this, I give the notifier here, but I wrap it around one extra thing. So I could, well, first of all, it's timer task what we give to the timer to schedule running this timer task. And when you create the timer task, you must provide you must implement the run method of it. And in this run method, I actually call this run on UI thread, and there only will the notifier be run. So this makes certain that when this code here, the code above, we were looking at the notifier code, when it's run in the one single thread which updates the user interface. And I think next And in the last topic, we will talk about why this is important. But when using timers, you should use this run on UI thread to run the actual code. And yeah, so the timer task is the first thing I could give into the schedule method of the timer. And second is the delay, after how many milliseconds it should run. And now the timer is running, and after this many milliseconds, it will fire and run this code, which will make sure that the notifier is run on the UI thread. And then here I just empty the text field, which provides a little bit feedback to the user. Then on this case, I have in onDestroy, so this is onDestroy method of the activity. I call super destroy and then call timers cancel all. So when the user moves to another activity, all the timers get removed. And I think in the next topic, we will look at how to keep things happening behind the scenes when your activity has been destroyed, but it wants something to happen in the future, how to do that. But because we are not that far yet, I want to do this cancel all the timers so that they don't stay somewhere behind. And the last thing of this class is this create notification channel. So if you want to post notifications, you should create a channel. And this only came in certain version of Android, so you should be basically copying this code to make sure that it's possible. You give name and description to a channel, and you give it importance and ID string. And then with those information, you can create a new notification channel and set its description. And then you get notification manager using this get system service method, and then use it to create the notification channel. So now that we have created this channel, and here is the ID of the channel, and I'm using the same ID value here when I'm creating my notification. That makes sure that all my notifications go into the same channel. So that helps Android manage them and know that, okay, these notifications are part of the same channel. I should make sure they are bundled together. Then if we load into the layout file, just regular one, here on activity main, looks something like this. And well, first of all, this is a recycler view I've just added here in the layout, nothing special about it. All the code you saw takes care of everything else. It's just regular component here in the layout. Then I have here text and button and another of these label type texts and entry field. And there is one particular thing about internationalization here. So all the strings here, the text of this button, you can see it comes from the resources. And similarly for this, it comes from resources as well as this, and also the hint text of this one. And by placing all the content, all these strings into the resources enables us to efficiently translate the interface into a different language. Of course, your code also has strings which should be in the resources. Here, well, if I go back to the layout, you can see here on the top there is a little bit warning sign, and if you click it, you can get one list of warnings here. And if you have any hard-coded strings here, you will get a notification here. And if this is different warning. It's for autofill, but you will have this fix button, and by clicking that fix button, you can move that string into the resources. But yeah, your code can also have hard-coded strings, and I had few of them here. I think, well, not exactly, actually, yeah, it just shows them here. They are in the resources. So also here, you have this getString method, so you can get the string content from the resources in your code. And I think also here, what do we have? No, here we have a hard-coded string, and we get this light bulb here. And first option it suggests is extract string resource, so you can do that, and you just give a code for each one, and then it goes there and automatically gives us this code. So now most of my strings are in resources, and we can do translation of the interface. So if we look at the resources here on the left, we have the values section, and here we have strings, and I have already done translation, so there are two of them. There is regular one and then Finnish language version. If I go here, we see all these strings, and the one I added just a moment ago has this warning that it hasn't been translated to Finnish. Here is this option there on the top right corner called Open Editor, and this is the translation editor. You can click on it, and now this hasn't updated the latest content. Here is a refresh button, and now we have the one bad duration, and I can type in value here. Now it should be happy. It doesn't disappear immediately. Now it's happy with everything. So I have here translated all the texts in the interface, and I have marked one, this ID value. I don't want to translate that. I have marked it as untranslatable. So for example, application names and all this kind of code level strings and maybe some trademarks, you don't want to translate those, so you just mark them untranslatable. And you can add by clicking this button and just typing in, you can add any languages you want, and you get new fields into this table. If you have lots of languages, you don't want to see them all, so you can open this one and show and hide these different locales. So locale is the, well, the language and the country combination, telling us what sort of language should be used. As you can see, there is one that's called default value. In this case, it's English, and often it is English. So if the user's operating system has some language which is not included in your application, then the default values are used. If it has a language which is included in the translations of your application, then those texts are used. And this is how you do the basic translation of your application. And remember that I was using those number format and time format classes to format the content. So now if I go back to the application, you can see that it is in English, all the texts like the definition said. And then if I go to the settings of the phone, I have in this phone activated two languages, English and Finnish. If I drag the Finnish language to be the primary one, you can see that immediately the operating system itself updates, or in a couple of seconds. And if I go back to my application, you can see that it actually updates immediately as well. No need to even restart the application. We get the Finnish version of this application. And also if I add a few timers, you can see that the time is formatted in the way we usually format them in Finnish. 145107 in all of these elements, and here we have the notifications. They're on the same channel, so they go into one group. Let's just clear them all for now. And if I change back to the English language and go back into my application, and I add another timer, we can see that the date format is different, 2:51:52 p.m. So that yeah, the local switching between these languages formats the dates also now different, because I used in my code those date format tools. Yeah, I can just quickly show so that of course it doesn't really do anything. The intent is just returns to the same activity where I was. Then if we go back to the layout, viewing the layout, here is another place where you can look at the languages. So if you look at this top level bar here, we have, I just scroll it a little bit. We have the different locales here also. So I can switch here also between the Finnish and English. So you can see in the preview the content, and immediately notice, for example, if some text is so long that it doesn't fit. In this local selection, you can also have this option preview right to left. If I click on this, the interface kind of becomes a mirror image of itself. This refers to languages that are written from right to left. So some languages are written from left to right and some from right to left, and the layout of an interface should match this writing and reading order usually. So if you define the constraints in a regular way, this actually can happen automatically, but you can also define separate layouts for this left to right and right to left directions. And Android, you can mark also the drawables to be flipped automatically. So if you are, for example, creating an Arabic language version of your application. You can also have separate versions of the drawables for different languages, and have different colors for different languages if that in some cases is required. And if we go and look at the strings and their translations once more, you can also see that I'm using this percentage notification to put the values in there. And using this is really recommended because, first of all, it allows the translator to choose any word order so that they can put these variables in different locations. But also it makes enables Android to do this left to right and right to left reading order. And this is important because when you are mixing languages of these two different kinds, let's say you have an Arabic language interface, but then there is like Finnish name or Finnish address. I think the convention is that those are actually written in left to right order. They are not like inversed. And if you are using this template type of filling, then the Android using the UTF codes for this reading direction can actually do that correctly. And I think that is all I had You can also go from here to the translation editor from the design view. And if you haven't yet looked at this, you maybe should look at this. It's possible to choose between different themes. We haven't been talking about themes. Preview in different Android versions the themes, and possibility to preview in different devices, and landscape and portrait modes, and few other things, and also design. Tell how you want to view the interface. So I think now I can go to the summary slides. So how to do the internationalization in Android Studio. So translating the strings, all the text that appears in the user interface, just place the strings in resources. Studio helps you in that, kind of nags you if you don't do that. Then you translate them in the translation editor, and then remember to use date format, time format, number format when you are presenting information, but also when you are passing information. Other content can be adjusted as well, so the drawables can be separate for different languages. And if you end up in the situation where you want to support these languages of different reading orders, you can do that. You can have separate layout or even have it done automatically for you. And any other resource can be local specific as well. So put strings in resources in your code. When there is a hard-coded string, you have this suggestion of extract string resource, and just give them good names, and everything else is then pretty simple. In the interface builder, if there is a warning sign here, at some point click it, and then you can have notifications that okay, hard-coded text, and then you can either click here, open it, and click Fix button, or you can just type into the text field area the add and string and slash to add that string resource. Yeah, so if you click on that hard-coded text, it tells you what it's all about, and here's a Fix button. And then when you click on the strings, you can click the Open Editor. In the editor, you can add the locals, the languages you want to support. And then you get the table with the field for each of them. You can mark some of them untranslatable and translate the others. And when you need to combine multiple variables into one string, use the percentage formatting tool. And automatically you get separate Strings.xml file for each of the languages. You can preview the languages in the design view and fix the layout as necessary. And after that, it's all done. You don't need to, in runtime or in your code, do anything else explicit. The operating system, Android, knows the language that the user has set. The program, your application, somewhere behind the scenes, asks the operating system, what is it? And then the Android framework makes sure that the correct resources are used and the correct language interface is displayed. And as you saw, it actually updates in real time. No need to restart the application or anything, which is pretty advanced. Most of the frameworks don't really support that sort of flexibility. Snack bar, if you want to use it, in the Gradle script, you need to have this include in there, which depending on how you build your activities, you might get it automatically. The basic activity actually uses snack bar by default, so you don't need to do that if you included the basic activity. But if you started with an empty activity, you might empty activity project, you might need to go and add that yourself. And the parameter for the duration must be one of these three constants. You cannot give exact value how long the snack bar should be there. It's either long or short duration, or then indefinite, meaning that it stays visible until the user somehow interacts with it. And this part of the interface was Recycler View. If you add enough of those timers, you can see that you can scroll it by just dragging with your finger. It supports this very long list, and you can configure freely how the content is displayed. In this case, I'm just using single text view, so it's extremely simple. And view holders are the key element here, and those are the things that are being recycled, as the name says, Recycler View. So only required amount of view holders are created, and then they are bound to new data. So you must provide these view holders and bind them to new data and update the content of the actual component in there. Recycler View also have support for selecting items in the lists, but that is actually far from trivial. It's quite complex support and allows you to do lots of things, like tell how you want to indicate to the user that something has been selected, and you can control if it's single selection or range selection and so on. But to do that, you need to implement quite a lot of stuff, and be prepared to spend some time trying to learn it. I didn't include in this week's lecture because of its complexity. It's also one of these packages you must include in your project. And that is everything I had for this week. And I believe this should be enough for the exercises, so that you can now do them based on this information.